Hi everyone, so today I'm going to be talking about Pyraminx hardware, and it's probably going to be a bit of a rambly video. It's probably going to be a bit long-winded. I haven't scripted anything, I'm just here with some Pyraminxes and we're going to have a chat, right? So basically what I'm going to be talking about today is why I still think that the Yuxin Little Magic is a good recommendation to give, like I still recommend it to people, and why I think that it's still a Pyraminx that you should consider getting if you're looking for a Pyraminx. Just kind of based on your turning style, right? So what I'm going to be talking about first is the difference between the old batch and the new batch Yuxin Little Magics. And then we're going to be talking about why I think that even though the new batch is worse, it's still something you should consider getting. And then I'm going to be basically talking about the counter arguments to that, or kind of rather things that you should consider if you're going to go down the Yuxin Little Magic route. So let's first talk about why people have stopped recommending the Yuxin Little Magic. Because if you go back, let's say you go back a year, the Yuxin Little Magic is basically the best Pyraminx that you can get. All of the top people use it, especially this one in particular. This is the Stevens setup Yuxin Little Magic, and if you look at if you look at the top 100 results of averages for Pyraminx, most of them are going to be done with something like this, Stevens Yuxin Little Magic Pyraminx. That is the best Pyraminx, right? And I still think that this is kind of considered as the best Pyraminx by most people, but you can't get your hands on it anymore, right? They changed it. They changed the kind of plastic or like something about it, I don't really know. But the new batch, like the way you can tell, this isn't like the change that made it worse, right? But the way you can tell if it's a new batch or an old batch, if you look inside, you see the old batch has like the same color as its internals, but the new batch has like different colors all around. So that's how you can tell. But basically, they made it worse. I think the tips are definitely worse, the turning's a bit worse, and I think also the quality control I've heard is quite bad on this. Like you see some people's Pyraminxes that they get, and it's like, what? And I have two new batch Yuxin Little Magics, and one of them is definitely like a little bit better than the other. I think this is like a tiny bit better than this, but you can tell. So therefore, basically, in this video, I'm going to be assuming that you get something like this, right? I can't, in good conscience, be like, oh yeah, you should absolutely get this, assuming you're going to get the one that's slightly better rather than the one that's slightly worse. Everything I say in this video is assuming that the Pyraminx that you're going to get is slightly worse because of the quality control. So that'll be something to consider later on in the video, basically. But basically, Steven stopped making his Pyraminxes. If you have one that's like Steven's, it's like automatically old batch because he doesn't make any more because of the change. And basically, a lot of people who either their old batches wore out or they kind of got into Pyraminx, kind of more recently, so they couldn't get their hands on an old batch. They were faced with the option of a new batch or a Weilong, and increasingly more and more people are choosing the Weilong, especially when you have really good Weilong setups like the PyQ Premiums and the Stevens. So that's basically the current state of Pyraminx hardware, right? You have kind of two main Pyraminxes, two choices. You can either go for a standard Weilong or a Yuxin Little Magic, and increasingly more and more people are saying, actually, you should just get a Weilong, right? There's no point in trying to mess around and make this cube really good when you could just go for a Weilong. And I think that for most people, this is the right approach, right? For most people, their turning style is, it's kind of, it suits the Weilong, like relatively well. I think, so there's some people whose turning style like just suits the Weilong really well, right? So someone like Michael Nielsen, obviously he has, the Stevens Weilong and the Stevens Yuxin Little Magic, but he's always gone for the Weilong because that is, I just assume that's best for his turning style, right? And it obviously works for him. He's the former world record holder, so he's done quite well for himself with the Weilong. Now, some people who, when faced with this choice, in terms of so most people, what I'm saying is most people when faced with this choice, basically an old batch or a Weilong, most people go for this because it's just better. But some people's turning styles work with this. Now, unfortunately, you can't get the old batch anymore, so we're faced with this choice. What are we going to go for? It's kind of, some people would rather go for this, some people would rather go for this, right? So some people, where they would have chosen this, are now going to choose this, right? But some people, the Weilong just doesn't work for them, and I'm one of those people, right? The Weilong, I wouldn't use this in the competition. I wouldn't really practice it with it that much. It just doesn't suit my turning style. And I've tried a lot of good Weilongs, right? I've tried all of these, and I quite like this one. This is the Maglev. It's the one that's kind of closest to the Yuxin Little Magic. I think that's why I like it. But basically, I've tried a lot of good Weilongs, and I don't like it as much. I would prefer the Yuxin Little Magic. So for some people, I think that the Yuxin Little Magic is still the best option, right? Even though it's, new batch, it's not as good as this, I don't think we should be writing the Yuxin Little Magic off, because for some people, the turning style just works better with the Yuxin Little Magic. Now, obviously, if I, in my practice and competition stuff, I'd use the old batch, because it's better, right? And I understand when I recommend the Yuxin Little Magic to someone, you're not going to get an old batch. You're going to get a new batch, and, it's not quite as good. But I think, I would still rather use this, this new batch budget Pyraminx, rather than the most expensive Pyraminx you can buy and kind of my favourite Weilong. I'd much rather use this than any Weilong Pyraminx because of my turning style. Now, for most people, that's not true. They'd rather use a good Weilong than a new batch Yuxin Little Magic, but that's not true for everyone, right? So I think that, basically, based on your turning style, you should either go for the Weilong or the Yuxin Little Magic. And that's the kind of recommendation that I've been giving for a while, and can see myself still giving for a while until a new good Pyraminx gets released. Because, I can't see anything really changing that majorly in the future. In the near future, unless something really good gets released. So, in terms of kind of thinking about which turning style suits you better, it is difficult to really say. The Weilong's a lot faster, a lot more kind of uncontrollable. This has a lot more control. It's kind of a bit slower, a bit more stable. So I kind of prefer that. Some people prefer that. I think if you say the old Moyu or the Bell V2 or something like that, go for this. But if you have a really strong preference for the Bell V1 or the Mr. M or something, then go for this. Go for the Yuxin Little Magic. If you kind of don't really know what you should go for, just go for this, right? This is kind of the safer option. I'm going to talk about the quality control of this and what you have to consider if you want to go for this next, because this is the safer option. And this is why a lot of people have stopped recommending this, because it's you can get this really good, but actually, we should recommend people the safer option. But I don't think that's what we really should be doing. So I think now I'm going to talk about what you should be considering if you are I really like the Bell V1 or the Mr. M, or I really like controllable Pyraminxes, so I'm going to go for this. What should you consider? Well, first off, if you don't have weight 5, it's not worth it, right? Either don't get it or get it along with some weight 5, right? Because the Yuxin Little Magic Pyraminx, it's not that good unless you do the Steven setup. Doing the Steven setup, which basically involves taking it apart, doing some stuff with the internals, removing a magnet from each tip, and then lubing it up with weight 5. So it's not that difficult, but you need weight 5. And if you don't have that, or don't want to do the setup or anything, then just go for a Weilong, because it requires a bit of effort. It's not that difficult, but you are going to have to take it apart and lube it, basically, if you want it to be any good. And the other thing to consider is, quality control and all that. You might get something that's bad, but if you're super worried about that, then consider this, right? You could get this is I think $30 on a cubicle. The Stevens Weilong, which is what you want, right? You can get a standard, a normal standard Weilong, it'll be alright, but you want the Stevens setup. you know, Stephen is an absolute master at setting up Pyraminxes. You want his setup. But it's $30 on the Cubicle, right? You can get 2 Yuxin Little Magic Pyraminxes and some weight 5 for that. So, you know, if the Yuxin Little Magic is going to suit your turning style better, it's probably worth it to just get 2. If one of them's better, it doesn't matter, whatever. Right, I can use the other one instead. So 2 of these, weight 5, about the same price. And you can, you know, basically choose which one better. So the other thing to consider is, like, the tip's quite bad. So one thing I did, and the reason why I would use this instead of this right now, they're both new batch Yuxin Little Magics, both with the same setup. But so with the standard one, with, like, when you get the Yuxin Little Magic, you have 3 tips, 3 magnets in each tip is what I mean. I keep saying we have tips. It's not. It's how many magnets. So you have 3 magnets in each tip, right? And you remove one of them to get to the Stephen setup. And this is what this has. But I don't know why. Like, the magnets on this are bad. So, like, both of these have 2 magnets in each tip. And this one is just better. So what I did on this is I removed a second tip. So there's only 1 magnet each tip, right? I removed a second magnet, is what I mean. And this only has 1 magnet each tip now, and it's a lot better. The tips are a lot better. So that's something you should consider, right? You need to remove a second magnet. And the last thing you can consider is basically, this is another reason why people have kind of stopped recommending it, is because these Pyraminxes, like, they're low quality, like, they're good turning, right, but the plastic is not very good quality. So if you do, like, a couple hundred solves on it without lubing it, it's going to die. Like, it's it's going to wear out, and it's going to stop being good, and it'll last you, you know, it's not going to last you very long. But you can fix this, right? Like, you have weight 5, because I've told you to, you know, if you're going to get this, you need weight 5, right? And basically, you can, what I do, like, with this, because obviously this is, like, my favourite Pyraminx, I don't want this one to die, so if I can, like, see lube on here, it's fine, but if I can't, I obsessively re-lube this, like, constantly, like, every time I practice, right? And, you know, it's kind of annoying, but it means this Pyraminx has lasted me, like, a year, right? Which is way more than, like, most people Yuxin Little Magics, because I've taken care of it, right? Yes, the Pyraminxes do die, but if you take care of them, they'll still be fine, basically. So yeah, basically, what I think, you know, over time, people are recommending the Yuxin Little Magic a lot less, and are recommending the Weilong a lot more. For most people, just go for the Weilong, it'll be fine, you'll be great, right? Have fun, you can leave. But if you, you know, if the turning style suits, you know, this Pyraminx better, and you are willing to, you know, put a bit of effort into having a Pyraminx that's really good for you, then, you know, I still think that the new batch Yuxin Little Magic is pretty good. I don't think you should, you know, not get it because it's a new batch. You can still make a new batch really good if you put that effort in, and yeah, that's why I still recommend the Yuxin Little Magic. Well, I recommend, you know, that you should get the Weilong or the Yuxin Little Magic, depending on which one's better for your turning style. Most people would just recommend a Weilong, but I think you should consider this. But yeah, basically, that was a video. Good times. I'll get it uploaded.